Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Medical Record Monday and our brand new episode of Should You Take That Case? The goal of our show is to be a resource for legal professionals who pursue medically related cases by sharing their experiences and insight as defense or plaintiff attorneys. I'm your host, Lisa Wade, owner of Wade Nurse Consultants. Think of us when you have those medical records that need to be summarized quickly and thoroughly. Visit us at wadenurseconsultants.com. But I am also the creator of our wonderful LinkedIn community, Attorney Medical Record Resource Group. That's where we get all of our fantastic attorney guests like the one we have today, and I'll be introducing him shortly. We use this as an opportunity to get to know one another, and we'll do that today with Jonathan Vitarelli. But first, let's get over to the chat and see who is visiting us live today. If you are a lawyer, put an L in that chat. If you're a paralegal, put a P, but put a W if you are part of a wonderful group that I'm a part of too, Women Owned Law. It is a groundbreaking group created to connect and advance women legal entrepreneurs. So visit us at womenownedlaw.org and see if it is a group that you can get behind. We want to thank you for taking precious time out of your day to spend time with us. So now it's time for us to introduce our guest today. Jonathan Vitarelli has been an NYC plaintiff's personal injury lawyer since 1996, and he's worked both for family firms and small to medium partnerships, and he has had his own partnerships. And John can be reached at the unique number 212 John V 100. And now let me bring to you Jonathan Vitarelli. There you go, Jonathan.
Hi, and that's John Jon, by the way.
John Jon. I'm so sorry. Yes, okay. I told you I have a son, Jonathan, and yes, he is Jon. But some people want him to spell John.
You know what I'm saying? How strange.
What can I say? All right, excellent. Well, I'm so glad to have you here today. I know we are going to get to talking to you about medical records and how they pop up during your cases and what you do about them. But first, we want to hear all about you, Jonathan. We want to hear what brought you into the law, what brought you into this area of law. What are you going to tell us today about your journey?
So how did I become a lawyer? You know, as a child, I had a little brain quirk that made me do that. I had an artist dad who wanted a lawyer's son, and I had a more traditional mother who wanted an artist's son, and they kind of both won. But I got here because Dad, the artist, wanted a lawyer somehow, and it seemed stuck in my head somehow. How did I become involved with legal medicine? So when I got my first job, there were no jobs. When I say no jobs, I mean there were no jobs. And I took a job in a plaintiff's personal injury firm, and it turned out that was something I was pretty good at and liked pretty much. And went from job to job, had my own firm for a little while. And here I am now, 25 years later, having been a plaintiff's personal injury trial lawyer in all boroughs of New York City and greater New York for quite some time. And I guess that's how I got here.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like a unique journey, to say the least.
It's been a good journey. And it funds my art, which is a lovely thing. And I know a lot of artists, a lot of lawyers who do this to fund what they do. That may not be the straight legal thing that people want to hear, but it's an actual reality in being a lawyer. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
All right. Well, yeah, a lawyer to fund your fun. That's what I like.
And
Well,
it's good to shift some money around from the awfully wealthy to the awfully needy. There's
all
something actually good, and I tend towards the white knight part of that stuff. Trying to do good in the world in that way. Not everybody believes that because there's some defendants out there, but hey, we got to promote our side, don't we?
yeah, you're a regular Robin Hood, yes? Well,
Yes,
not.
I promote that as something. A lot of people would disagree, but I will promote that aspect of it, no problem.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm so glad you're here with us. Tell us a little bit about how do you choose the cases? Do you pick and choose? How do you decide whether a case is a good case to take, a reasonable case to take, or something to just pass on?
So it's gone full circle. So 25 years ago when I started, it was all about the injury. If you looked at the injury and the injury was significant enough, you would take the case and work your way through the liability. Sometimes you'd win, sometimes you'd lose. What are you going to do? As time changed and I shifted firms and I even had my own firm, there was a lot more looking at liability and the possibility of when betting your own money in these things, as plaintiff's personal injury attorneys do, you had a better sense of what the case was. So liability mattered. And then the damages, the medicals, ended up coming in different tiers. When I had my own firm, there was short, immediate money, there was medium sort of money, and then there was long-term, we're doing okay money. And that really had to do with the damages and the medicals more than the liability, because bad liability cases you'd shuffle off right away. But you wanted to get a variety of cases when you have your own firm so that you could gauge the money in an ongoing fashion and you could have an ongoing enterprise that might survive. Needless to say, mine didn't. And I'm working for somebody else. But I'm way better as an employee than a boss. Just
I hear you. I hear you. Sometimes it's just nice to have a paycheck. Right? Well, now we're back to you've gotten that case, you've taken that case. So what about those medical records when they rear their ugly heads? Do you have a routine or a plan or a protocol to address them and get all that info that you need out of them?
I mean, me personally, when I analyze a case, most of it is spent on the medical records, sort of laying out all the injuries, laying out the sort of nurse's notes, trying to, compare against the nurses, like AOB is alcohol on breath. If you get that one in a motor vehicle, you don't really want that case. You try and read what the nurses say and gauge your cases based on what the medical records say. I mean, the clients will tell you all kinds of things, and the records will tell you all kinds of other things. And one's not necessarily better than the other, especially in medical malpractice, where, not to poke the hive too much, but 90% of medical malpractice cases change on a changed record. Isn't that funny? And the funny thing is, the doctors who've been at it long enough, they know what to write down in the first place. And not to be too pessimistic about the system, but, look at the age of your doctor. You'll know way better where you're coming from when looking at your medical records. And if that's, if you're doing that kind of thing, and in this, it's about categorizing based on the kind of treatment that somebody has. There's regular sort of physical therapy and treatment for people who have minor injuries. You start moving into injections, you start moving into surgeries, you start moving into heavier disabilities, and then you start moving into permanent. And whether you end up needing you need new surgeries and different things in the future and the prognosis. And getting the prognosis and the future in the medical records sometimes requires asking for it. Like, what is it that is going to happen to this guy? I mean, I know it's going to happen. I've been at it for a long time, but no judge is going to listen to me about what the medical records should say. But a proper analysis of medical records can tell you how far you can take a case and if something's missing. Like, if I have a guy, I had an arbitration today, the guy had a knee surgery, and the defendant car driver said his knee was bleeding at the scene. And it made perfect sense that he had a surgery on that knee. But at the same time, he had a pre-existing hip surgery, and he knew as a result of what happened, that he got stuck in with COVID, that the thing started tearing again because he started favoring that thing again. And he, he was going to need 2 surgeries in the future. So part of the play to the arbitrator was, look, I got a guy who had 1 surgery, sure, but he has 2 more coming. He saw the doctor not 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, 4 years after the accident, and here's where he is. Now, the defendant's medical record is 3 years old, and mine is 3 weeks old. Which one's going to make more sense? So knowing if you need something new in a medical record, like a new medical record or a new exam, which you almost always want before a trial, something is updated and current, so you can talk about what's what now. That's all medical record stuff, and trying to spot that takes a couple of disciplines. A trial lawyer is one discipline, but somebody who can read and analyze medical records and know the process of medicine and how it works with keeping somebody healthy even after the trial, with things that are going to happen and need to happen. But, maybe he doesn't want to get surgery right now. Maybe he wants to hold out for a little while because it freaks people out. Mm-hmm. Needles freak people out, let alone general anesthesia, which could kill you 1,000,000 times to Sunday, let alone cutting yourself open and getting scars and all that stuff. I had one recently where a guy had an IM rod in his leg. He fell down the stairs and his IM rod broke, so they had to take the old one out and put a new one in. Mm-hmm. Now, the amount of pain with taking it out was about as bad as putting the new one in. But how do you know that? You got to talk to somebody that knows that kind of stuff to get the information. And, the client may tell you, but that's only getting you so far. You need some kind of professional, right?
All right. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. So it seems like you dive right into those records. What, if anything, is a pet peeve of yours about dealing with medical records? What you find bothersome, puzzling, and very difficult to deal with?
I mean, should I bypass the doctor's handwriting because that's just too much?
You can include it.
But I do have actually a pet peeve, and it's an emergency room pet peeve. And the emergency room pet peeve is they try and both cops and emergency room staff try to encapsulate the case, and they kind of do so in a CYA kind of way, rather than giving a true rendition of what happened. They want to make sure that they don't have to do anything, could get out, and the person could go. Now, it's true the guy's going to be released and see his own private doctor, but that doesn't mean what he came in and said was what you wrote, because generally it's not. I mean, generally the amount of problems in emergency room records and from the scene of the accident, not so much EMS, because they have a different thing that they do, I find to be awfully troubling. One, by people who have no business writing sort of medical information, like a police officer, or sort of a nurse who wants to get it written on in such a way that it takes everything off of the hospital. I can't remember the last time I don't think in 25 years I've sued an emergency room for having a bad emergency room record, and almost every other one is bad. Why don't I sue them? It makes no sense. But so to me, to cover yourself, to keep everything clean for your job. Look, I get everybody has a job. I have a job, but it hurts people to write it down wrong. And when I read the emergency room records to my clients, they're shocked at what it said. How the liability is taken away from them by statements they didn't make, and injuries injuries that they claim aren't listed, and people who have major surgeries afterwards when they didn't even have a complaint in the emergency room. It's really, that's my pet peeve is people trying to not be straight about the thing.
Slanted stories. I understand.
It's covering yourself. And I understand why people do it. I mean, medical malpractices are impossible anyways. Nobody's suing an emergency room because, the guy went home and vomited. You know what I mean? He's going to go see his own doctor, even though they all write that. And I don't know. That's sort of my pet peeve, which I think is what you asked.
I got you. I understand. Well, when I was writing and at the bedside, less is more. Just write down what happened. Not why you think it happened.
Yeah.
So I get you. So you have given a lot of good information. You are full of information. Let me just tell you.
People tell me I'm full of it all the time.
Do you?
I have an interesting one if you want.
I do. I want to hear.
So I had a case where a teacher a public school teacher in a Catholic school came to me and said, I got TB at school. Now, infectious disease wasn't a big deal then as it is now. But I was like, okay. And then there was other public school teachers working in the Catholic school, which in and of itself bothered me because, the diversion of public funds to Catholic private schools, being a Catholic, it still bothered me. But it turned out that there was a teacher who didn't get tested and he coughed over the entire school. And there was an outbreak from the teacher and a spread to the entire school. And I had 125 plaintiffs suing, this elementary school, Catholic school. And the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene was initially involved because they had taken over the case and the administration of the drugs and the testing and telling the students. And while they disavowed their own sort of action and guiding this thing, I took them all the way to the Court of Appeals, which in New York State is the highest. It's the Supreme Court of New York State, like it, the highest court, the appellate court. And so therefore I had to do an early municipal hearing with all the plaintiffs. Now that's a lot of plaintiffs. And it was very close to them getting TB, some even before they had gone through the full regimen of drugs. And when it came time to do the hearings, and at that point we had live court reporters, there was no such Zoom. The nerves involved in the room where we were arguing infectious disease was really quite astounding. Nobody wanted to take the report. Nobody wanted to be a stenographer. It was medically very difficult case to get through because it scared everybody with good reason. And one thing that I should say while I have the opportunity is that the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene had made the following calculation. There's TB in the school and everybody's got it, and we shouldn't tell the parents. Why shouldn't we tell the parents? Because it's better they come in, get sick, and then we can treat the kids. And they thought that was reasonable. And the fact that was the New York City protocol made it de facto reasonable. And my parents were so pissed. And I was, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, I was very angry at it. It was a very callous way of treating the public, of treating a not wealthy neighborhood of school, especially working class people who worked very hard to get their kids into a school that wasn't the bad public school. For some of these people to spend $2,500 a year to get their kid into Catholic school was a huge deal. And I'm a big proponent of education. And the fact that the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene was so callous and the Catholic Church was so callous. I mean, medical records are the only thing that kind of saved that because, they had to make medical records of treating these kids and testing these kids. And the fact is that a lot of this stuff came to light because the kids went to summer camp and summer camp tested them. And the parents is like, what do you mean you went to camp and got TB? And they went into the city clinics and they found out that everybody in the neighborhood had it. And there was this huge spread with all these people. And without medical records, you just don't get that. And,
thank goodness people are keeping there's people like you that are keeping track of these things.
I mean, it's good that the medicine was triangulated because if it was just in a line, these kids would have been lost and they wouldn't have gotten any money for the thing. I mean, it took me, this is 2007. I'm waiting for my last check to come next week because the Catholic Church was just so horrible about doing what they were supposed to be doing. Anyways, so the triangulation of medical records was the only way to make that thing happen, and it happened. And it was a hard slog for a lot of years to try and get that from different sources. And Had I not been looking through medical records and reading stuff and comparing and triangulating myself, nothing would have happened. I wouldn't have gotten all that money for all those kids, 15 years later.
Oh, well, thank goodness. Thank goodness you were there and they had you behind them.
Every once in a while, you get to do some good, is what my friends tell me.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, like I said, you are a wealth of information, and I'm so glad to have you here sharing all of your knowledge and your insights and your experience. And now it's time for a little Q&A. Maybe some folks out there have a few questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So while everybody is out there getting your questions for Jonathan together to put into the chat, into the comments box, I am going to give what I call, it's time for a little sponsor break. Give me a minute to tell you what Wade Nurse Consultants is all about, what we do here, and then we'll get right back to Jonathan. Without a review of and summary of medical records, it could be harder for you as a medical malpractice or personal injury attorneys to know if you should take that case. And here at Wade Nurse Consultants, we give you a 1 to 2 page synopsis and opinion regarding the merits of those types of cases, using my 30 plus years of nursing experience to make quick work of those medical case screenings. So if you're watching this and you already have your own nurse paralegal on board, this isn't for you. But if you are ready to attack your backlog of medical case screenings, or you need to get clarity on medical issues and free yourself to focus on your legal strategies, this is what you do. Right now, we are offering a free 20-minute medical record strategy call to help you hone an efficient and timely and cost-effective routine around your medical cases. Just click on the link that you'll find in the description box of this YouTube channel to schedule that call. Now it's time to get back to our guests and the Q&A. Let's look, Jonathan. Do we have any questions yet? No. But that happens sometimes. But I have a solution if you're ready to hear.
Okay.
I usually put your contact information inside the YouTube channel description box and have people reach out to you at their leisure, even when they're catching it on the replay. And then they can ask you all of the questions that they want. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wind up since we don't have any questions right now, but I have one question for you. Are you going to come back again?
I'll come back anytime you want, Lisa. You were a great interview. Thank you.
Oh, you are so sweet. Thank you. Look forward to having you back again.
Very good.
Now, I just remind anybody that is watching or catching us on the replay to like and subscribe to this channel. If you sign up, click on and turn on your notifications so you can be alerted the next time before we are on the air. If you have any legal nurse consulting questions, email me at lisa@wadenurseconsultants.com, and I will answer those questions as soon as humanly possible. And now we are going to come back next week, but we're going to ask you to catch us next time, Monday, 5:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a brand new episode of Should You Take That Case? And thank you for coming, Jonathan.
Final statement. If you're ever going to do a show about 9/11 and the Victims Compensation Fund and that stuff, I have both stories and experience, and would be happy to join you for that kind of thing because it was a bizarre thing, as we all know. Anyways, just thought I'd mention that, and peace out. It was nice talking to you.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.